Yeah, two things before getting started. The session is recorded, so you will be able to watch the webinar afterward. You will receive an email. And also the code that we're going to show you, you will be able to use it as well. So if you want to do what we are going to show you on your computer, you will be able to do it. So no worries. You will get everything just after the webinar.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. So yeah, what we'll do today is I'm going to go through some slides kind of talking about the TaskFlow API, what it is, sort of some basic concepts. And then after that, I'll hand it over to Mark for most of the time to go through a demo of some of these things so you can get some hands-on experience. Feel free to throw questions in the chat, and we'll try to leave some time at the end for Q&A as well. So to get started, since everybody is here to learn about the TaskFlow API, I think you probably all know at least a little bit about Airflow. But just in case, very briefly, Airflow is an open source tool used to programmatically author, schedule, and monitor your data pipelines. It's a top-level Apache Software Foundation project. And of course, at Astronomer, we believe it's the de facto standard for data orchestration. And this past December, the Airflow project made a huge step forward with the release of Airflow 2.0. So this major release was the product of a ton of great work of many people in the Airflow community and included hundreds of features and bug fixes. Many of the larger features were developed based on feedback from the Airflow community survey, and they included things like a new highly available scheduler, stable REST API, updated UI and UX, updated Kubernetes executor, of course, the TaskFlow API, and many more features. As a general note, at Astronomer, we've already heard tons of feedback from customers in the community about how impactful 2.0 has been. So we definitely recommend upgrading. But for today, we're going to dive deeper into one of those new features. So that's obviously the TaskFlow API. So to start with the definition, prior to Airflow 2.0, there was no explicit way to declare messages passed between tasks in your DAG. You could always use XComs, but they were hidden in the execution functions within your operators. So that could create confusion when designing your pipelines, or just made things more opaque in general. So the TaskFlow API was designed to solve this problem by allowing explicit passing of messages in Airflow DAGs while implicitly declaring those task dependencies. So the functionality that allows this to happen includes XCom args, which allow task dependencies to be abstracted and inferred as a result of invoking your Python functions. There's a new task decorator that automatically creates Python operator tasks from Python functions and can handle variable passing. And support for custom XCom backends. So we'll dive into each of these features a little bit deeper and again, also show a demo. But to start, for the XCom args, before we dive into what they look like now, let's review what XComs looked like in Airflow 1.10 and earlier. So if you had a basic ETL type pipeline where each task needed information from the task before it, you could implement that by setting up your tasks, pushing information from that task to XCom, and then pulling it in the next task. So you can imagine, or if you've done this yourself, you know that implementing this requires a lot of code. You have to create all of the Python operators, you have to define those dependencies, you have to explicitly push and pull those XComs. So that's just a lot to manage. And additionally, if your DAG had more than a couple of tasks, it could be very difficult to tell where those dependencies were. You wouldn't be able to see that by just looking at the graph view, whether that load task depended on something that was pushed from that extract task. So now, with XCom args in the TaskFlow API, you can accomplish the same use case, but without the need for all of that extra code. So your data is passed between tasks explicitly by invoking the Python functions that create each task. So your DAG is much cleaner and easier to understand. And this will all be a little clearer when Mark walks through it in the demo. But before that, I also want to touch on those other features in the TaskFlow API, one of which is decorators. So the new task decorator allows you to convert any Python function into a task instance using a Python operator. There's also a DAG decorator, which allows you to instantiate your DAG using the decorator, so without using a context manager. This is just so completely optional. You don't have to use this, but it just provides another sort of clean, standardized Pythonic way to define your tasks in your DAG. So that some developers prefer to work this way. And then lastly, for features, so the TaskFlow API has new support for custom XCom backends. So the way XComs normally work is they are going to push that data to Airflow's metadata database and then pull from it in your next task. With a custom backend, you can use an external system instead of Airflow's metadata database to store that information, and you can implement your own serialization and deserialization methods. So this gives you much more flexibility when working with XComs. 2.0 came with support for a couple of different backend kind of out of the box, and we'll show an example of how you can set something like this up. And then finally, I'll add a quick note here to say that the TaskFlow API is actually a new Airflow feature, and its functionality will likely be expanded on in the future. So there are already open PRs from folks on the Astronomer team to add decorators for other operators in addition to the Python operator. So that's really exciting and will hopefully be available soon. And in general, just definitely keep an eye on this space for future developments. And with that, I will hand it over to Mark to demo some of these new features.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you for this awesome presentation. Let me share my screen, and that's, can everybody see my screen?
I can.
Great. All right, so it's time for the demo. I would like to show you three things in that demo. First, why with the TaskFlow API, you will be able to create better and faster data pipelines. Also, how can you really, what do you really need to understand in the TaskFlow API to use it in the best possible way? And finally, why it is super important that you use the TaskFlow API. But before getting started, I would like just to repeat what Ketan said. Indeed, the TaskFlow API is not meant to share data, to share big data between your tasks. The goal of the TaskFlow API is to make sure that the implicit dependencies created by the tasks sharing data are explicit. And you're going to understand that in a few seconds. So let's get started. Let's say you have the following data pipeline. Okay, so this data pipeline is actually extremely simple. You have 4 tasks: download, clean, process, and report, and they all use the Python operator. So you execute a Python function for each task. One thing you have to know, and this is the first thing, the TaskFlow API is divided in 3 different parts. And the first part is about XCom args. We're going to discover this in a minute. But first, if you take a look at this data pipeline, so let's go to the UI and refresh the page, then click on my problem here. Indeed, download push some data, XCom_push. Then in clean, so in the task clean, we pull a XCom. We pull that XCom from download. As you can see, we have the key file info and the task ID download. Then in process, we push a new XCom. And finally, in report, in the last task, in the last executed task, we pull 2 XComs, one coming from download and one coming from process. And well, there is a problem here. Indeed, if you take a look at the dependencies, you might say report depends on process, but actually that's not the case. That's not the case. Report depends on both tasks, download and process. Why? Because in report, we pull XComs from process, from download and process. Okay, and that's the implicit dependencies created by XComs. And you might say, okay, Mark, but that's okay. I mean, if I execute first, download, then clean, then process, well, obviously report will be able to pull the XComs. Yes, but if you test that task, specifically that task, it will fail. It will fail because you need to execute first download in order to push the XCom, and then in unit test, get back that XCom in order to get report working. Okay, so that's the goal of the TaskFlow API. The goal of the TaskFlow API is to make sure that the implicit dependencies created by your XCom become explicit. So here, you should see report that depends both on process and download, directly download. We are going to see that in a few minutes. But let's get started with XCom args. What is the XCom arg? And that's the first component of the TaskFlow API. An XCom arg is nothing more than a class which references an XCom from an operator. So for example, you have download, the task download, which pushes an XCom, as you can see here. What you will do, you will create the XCom arg object, encapsulating the task download. And then from that XCom arg object, you will be able to get the XCom that is pushed by the task download. Okay, so let me show you this. First, let's import the XCom arg object. So here you type from airflow.models.xcom_arg import XCom arg, like that. Okay, so you have XCom arg. Once you have this, you can play with it. And if you create a new variable, let's say XCom_arg, or actually, yeah, XCom that XCom to that XCom, to the XCom pushed from the task download. Okay, that's what you are saying here. Let's comment this code. So let's say like that, and let's print a quick log here. So XCom_arg. If you save the file, okay, and take a look at the logs in, let's say, logs and MyDAG, or actually not MyDAG, in the scheduler, and use the last day, so mydag_.py, and you can do this if you want to take a look at your DAG. Okay, looks like I have, okay, here we go. So if you take a look at the log in a few seconds, that, let's see, hopefully we should be able to see the logs. Okay, let's see. Actually, if you take a look at the logs, you will see this line right there. The task instance .xcom_pool task ID. You use the curly brackets, then you call the task. I mean, you use the task instance object, then you call the method xcom_pool. You pass the task ID, you pass the DAG ID, and finally the key, which is a lot of code just to pull a XCom, right? Well, that's exactly what the XCom arg class allows you. What exactly the XCom arg object allows you. So whenever you use the XCom arg object, it is automatically translated by Airflow by this instruction. So you don't need to use this long instruction anymore. Okay, so that's what you have to remember. Whenever you use the XCom arg, you get a reference to the XCom pushed from the operator passed in parameter. Okay, and that's what we have here. Okay, so now you know what is the XCom arg. What else? Well, the problem here is that if you take a look at the log, you can see that the key by default is return_value. And so whenever you push XCom, whenever you return an XCom, that is the key by default, task download. Well, it is super simple. The only thing you need to do is to specify in XCom arg the key that you want. And here, It is file info. That's it. By doing this, instead of having return underscore value, you will get file info. And hopefully, if we take a look at the logs, we should be able to see that. So let's see. Let's see, as you can see, we have a lot of logs. And as you can see here, you see the key file info. So that's how you can specify the key whenever you use the XCom org object. Okay. Now, that's great. I mean, we know how to use the XCom org object in order to get a reference to the XCom pushed by the task, and we know how to specify the key of the XCom we want. But what about if we want to share that XCom with clean? Well, in that case, let's uncomment the task like that. Okay, so we have two tasks, download and clean, and we can remove this. Instead of using directly the XCom org class, which will be a bit tricky, tedious to use, you can remove this. And instead, to generate an XCom org automatically from your operator, you can just use dot output. And all of your operators have this attribute dot output. By using dot output, you get automatically your XCom org. Okay, that's what we have done just a few seconds ago. That's exactly what you obtain here. So download here is not an operator anymore, but it is the XCom org object with dot output. So from here, you have a reference to the XCom pushed by download. So let's rename that variable. Let's call it download underscore output. And here, how can we pass it to the clean task? How can you do that? Well, you know that in the Python operator, there is an additional parameter that you can use, an additional attribute that you can use, which is op underscore k underscore works, like that. And here, what you can do is to just pass download underscore output, like that. Once you have done this, save the file. And here in clean, instead of having ti, the task instance object, we have two things, path and file name, which corresponds to what we have here, the path and the file name. Okay? So let's see. If we save the file, and as you can see, the dependencies are commented. Let's go back to the UI. Click on DAGs to see if we have any error. As you can see, we have one, unexpected indentation. So you have to be careful with your indents. So let's see. Where is it? 930. So I guess it's right there. So the file, let's go back to the UI and refresh the page again. We have to wait. Usually we have to wait 30 seconds before getting the modifications taken into account by Airflow. So let's wait to see. And now it's done. If you click on my DAG and grab view, as you can see, we still have the dependencies. You can see that clean is executed first. I mean, you can see that download is executed first and then clean. But if you go back to the DAG, we don't define that dependency. We don't do it anymore. I mean, we are just passing the XCom arg to the task clean. And that's the beauty of the TaskFlow API. Remember at the beginning, I said that with the TaskFlow API, you can explicit the implicit dependencies created by your XComs. That's exactly what you can see here. By passing an XCom arg to another operator, Airflow will automatically infer that there is a dependency between your tasks. And that's the beauty of the TaskFlow API. Okay? It is super powerful, but that's not all. So now you know how to share your data. Okay? Now you know how to share your data with XCom, with the TaskFlow API, with XCom args behind the scene. Another question you might have is, okay, Mark, that's great. I mean, now I can explicit my dependencies that were implicit with XComs just by using .output, and I obtain an XCom arg object. Yeah, that's great. I mean, but you're still using the Python operator, and I'm not gonna use the Python operator like in the rest of my life. I mean, at least in all of my data pipelines. So what about if I want to use another operator? Well, it will work as well. Let me show you this. If you comment this, so let's comment the clean operator, okay? And this time, instead of having the Python operator, we can say clean equals to the bash operator. Ooh, this operator is used a lot. So again, we have the task ID, and let's say clean, great, nothing new here. But this time we have a bash command, okay? We have this beautiful bash command, and yeah, let's print something on the standard output. I know it's not something fancy, but let's keep things simple here. So let's print, let's say, okay, let's do this like that. Let's say, hi, or here is my message. Sorry for that. It's not fancy, I know, but. And let's print actually a variable, an environment variable, which will be message. Okay, so dollar and message, like that. Next, here, instead of having message, what we want to print the content of download, the XCom, okay, those values. How can you do that? Well, here you can use the attribute env equals to a dictionary, and let's put message equals to download underscore output. And that's it. That's it. Here, that environment variable will be exported with download underscore output, where download underscore output is the XCom arg, and so the XCom you want to pull from download, and you will print it from the bash command. And by doing this, if we save the file and go back to the UI, let's check if the modifications have been taken into account. As you can see, the code is updated. We don't have any error, perfect. If we click on my DAG and click on graph view, again, we obtain the same dependencies. And keep in mind, I didn't define those dependencies. Airflow did it for me. And so it will do it for you. Okay, so that's the beauty of the TaskFlow API, and it works with the Python operator as well as the bash operator and any other operator actually. So let's run the task to see if it works. Let's run the DAG to see if it works. So if we schedule the DAG and refresh the page, hopefully in Airflow 2.0 we have this auto refresh button, which is like super useful, and we got an error. So click on it, click on log. That's how you can debug your task. And if we take a look at the logs, we have something really weird, like expected str, but non-type. Okay, so let's see. What is the issue here? We have message, download. Let's see. Actually, okay, let's. Looks like we have message non-type, so it looks like, oh yes, looks like the message is not taken into account as expected. So anyway, but that's how it works. Okay, that's the thing you have to remember. Because I don't want to debug here. I think it's just something that I can see now, but that's how it works. If you want to get your XCom arg taken into account by Airflow, the only thing you have to keep in mind is that put your XCom arg into a templated field. You know, those fields, those attributes from your operators that are templated, that are evaluated at runtime. So in that case, env will be automatically evaluated by Airflow, and so it will say, oh, actually download underscore output is an XCom arg, so I can pull the XCom and then put it in the command. Okay, that's what you have to remember. Okay, All right. So this is the first part of the TaskFlow API. This is the first part, but that's not all. Indeed, there are 3 parts. So the first one was about XCom arg and the fact that with the XCom arg object, with the XCom arg class, you can obtain a reference to the XCom pushed from an operator. Now there is something that is super exciting, like really exciting. And that's why I truly believe that TaskFlow API will become the new way of creating your DAGs. And this is the decorators. Like, I'm pretty sure that you create a lot of DAGs. And if not a lot of DAGs, you create a lot of tasks. And creating operators at first is quite funny. I mean, okay, we enjoy creating new operators, new tasks, and that's cool, you know. You discover a new thing. But at some point, creating new tasks again and again, basically you do the same thing again and again with the Python operator. You will always specify the task ID, then the Python callable function, and then, wow, at some point you just want to like find a better way, a faster way to create those operators. And that's exactly what the decorators allow you. With the decorators, you can create tasks in a very fast and easy way. Let me show you this. Okay, let's say you want to create the download task with the task decorator. How can you do that? With the TaskFlow API. Well, in that case, the first step is to import the task decorator. So here you type from airflow.decorators and you import the task decorator. Once you have the task decorator, the only thing you need to do is to specify the decorator here at task, and then remove underscore, remove TI, and let's say you want to create an XCom. Instead of using XCom underscore push, you want to return the value, that dictionary, in order to create the XCom, in order to push the XCom. So instead of having this very long line, one thing you can do is to use return, and then you will create the corresponding XCom with that value and the key return underscore value. And that's it. That's all you need. That's all you need. You can actually remove the Python operator here, and still, that's exactly as you did before with the Python operator, but you only need to do that. By using the task decorator, you create a Python operator automatically. And that Python function will be used. Okay, so you don't need, yeah.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah, sorry.
So for now, the task decorator is only available for the Python operator. Can I still create DAGs that have Python operators using the task decorator and other operators?
Exactly. You are still able to, even if you use the task decorator, so you create an operator with, you create a task with the task decorator, you will still be able to create your dependencies between like traditional operators and operators that are created with the task decorator. Okay, that doesn't change anything. You will still be able to create dependencies between tasks created with the task decorator and the other task created with like the usual way with operators.
Awesome.
So once we have this, we have successfully created the task. And we can do that with clean as well. I mean, here you can just remove that, then add task like that. So let's put at task, have the task decorator. And again, we can remove this. And here, let's say, instead of having path and file name, we want to pass file info. That will be the XCom we have here. And we want to print file info, the path, and let's say we want to do the same, but this time with file name. Okay, that's exactly what we have here in the XCom. But again, just by doing this, you have successfully created a second Python operator. But wait a minute. You might say, should I put something here? Like, what should I put here actually? Like, I have my two Python operators, but what should I say here? Well, actually, the only thing you need to say that, okay, you want to use download or you want to use clean is to call the function. Here, you call download, and that's it. By doing this, you are saying to Airflow that download is a task and you want to execute it in your DAG. And now the second question is, how can I get the XCom produced from download? Well, you call clean and you pass download as a parameter of clean, like that. And if you remember, download here will be a XCom arg. And so you are passing the XCom pushed here as a parameter of the task clean, so file info, and then you will be able to print the XCom. No need to add the Python operator, no need to specify the task ID, no need to call XCom underscore push and so on as shown right there. You don't need to do that anymore. It is much faster and more clear and reliable. So if you save the file and go back to the UI, let's verify this, because I really want to show you this and hopefully we don't get any error. So let's clean everything. Go to browse diagrams. Let's remove the diagram here, delete the record. And let's see the DAG we have. So my underscore DAG, grab view. And as you can see, we still have the same tasks. And if you don't trust me, because you might say, maybe there is another code with the Python operators instantiated and so on. No. If you click on code, you can see that that's the same code. That's the tasks created with the task decorator and the dependencies created like that. Okay? And if we turn on the toggle of the DAG, and you should always turn on the toggle of the DAG if you want to trigger your DAG, and go back on grab view, I hope that at some point clean will work. Let's see. Yeah, I think I have to clean it. Let's clean that task again. So let's go to grab view. This is really, I mean, it is informative. Like you can see how to debug your task as well. So let's clear the task, click on OK, and let's see if it works now. No, still not. That's weird because, okay, let's see. See quickly, file info return. Because if you take a look at your XCom here, admin and XComs, you can see that you have the XCom file info as expected. Okay, so the XCom has been created by the task download. That's what you can see here. But now, once you have this, you should be able to get, yeah, needed to clean effectively. You should see, we should be able to, let me run the task again. Let's see. Okay, so my DAG, grab view. Okay, now it works. Beautiful. So if you click on clean and go to log, as you can see, we have the values, the file path, the file name, and the file path. That's the beauty again of the TaskFlow API. I mean, I didn't define any dependencies here. Airflow knows that for me. Okay. And you have successfully passed the XCom pushed from there in the clean task. But now, and I removed the underscore because I don't need it anymore. And I remove TS and TI, which is the task instance context and the timestamp. But hey, actually here, I still need to, let's say I want to push an XCom with a key, okay, not by returning the value, so processed file, and a value which is TS, timestamp, that you get from the current context of your task instance. So the question is, how can I get that task instance object? Because I'm using the task decorator, so I don't call the Python operator anymore. So how can I do that? Well, and this question, I've seen it a lot. In order to get the context of your task instance, whenever you use the task decorator, you need to import a beautiful method, which is the following one, get_current_context. and call it in the Python function or in the task that you want. So let's say context equals to get current context, and that's it. By doing this, you are able to access the context of your task, and so you are able to call TI as well as getting the task, getting the execution date of your DAG or getting the timestamp of your DAG and so on. You can do, you can access exactly what you were able to access using the provide_context attribute from Python operator. Okay. So once you have the context object here, one thing you can do is to type TI equals to context, then TI, the task instance object. And let's say you want to get the timestamp equals to context, and here the timestamp. And that's it. You obtain the exact same result as before, but this time you use the task decorator. So no need to use the Python operator. This is super powerful. All right, there is another thing I would like to show you. What about if you want to generate your tasks with the TaskFlow API? You can do that. Again, behind the scenes, it's still the Python operator. So here, let's say you have clean and download, and you want to generate some tasks automatically. So let's put a for loop. You have process_task in a beautiful range, and you have 1 to 4. So you want to create 3 tasks. And here, what thing you can do, and this is exactly what Keaton asks, you can still create dependencies like you did before with the right and left pitch shift operators. So here, let's say we want to generate 3 process tasks. How can we set the dependencies? Well, we put clean and process. You set the file, check the UI. Let's go back to UI, my DAG. Again, we have to wait a little bit before getting, okay, so we got an issue. Function to function, yeah, indeed, that won't work. Okay, so again, you have to make sure that you are not, this is an XCom arg and this is another one. So you have to make sure, if you don't use the parentheses, you are not using an XCom arg, you are using a function. Okay, so you have to make sure that you put the parentheses here, specify that you are using XCom args. So let's save the file, go back to the UI, refresh the page, and now we don't have file info anymore. Let's see, where is file info? Missing argument, file info. Okay, that's okay. Let's see. Okay, let's say I get cleaning here, and let's put cleaning like that, and hopefully it should work. So let's see. First the page. Okay. Yeah, that happens, demo. But anyway, I will show you the code at the end that works. But that's how you can generate tasks. If you want to generate your tasks, you can do it dynamically like you did before and specify your dependency. Okay. You can still use the right and left bit shift operator as you did before. It is still an operator behind the scene. So yeah, that's it is what it is. That's the demo effect. All right, so actually, I would like to show you the code that you will get at the end. So let me show you this. At the end of the day, once you have everything put, you will get the following data pipeline. Okay, so let me explain to you this. We have still download. Okay, we have the task download, the operator download, which is automatically created by task. Then clean again, and we show the path. Then we have process with get current context, and we have report. This time we say that the file info, okay, the XCom pushed from download and the XCom pushed from processed will be used. Okay, so from 2 tasks, download, and process. And as you can see here, we get the XCom pushed by download, so file info. Again, that's what you can see here. And then we say, okay, here I want to get only the path, that value. I want to get that path. So I get it from file info, and then I pass it into clean. Okay, that's exactly what we have seen. Once we have that, we want to generate tasks automatically. What thing we can do, we can create an array, a list, and then we append those dependencies. Okay, so here we are saying that process depends on cleaning, and we generate 3 process tasks, as you can see by the for loop. And finally, here by saying, as we did before, we are specifying that we want to get the XCom having the key processed file. Why? Because that's what we push here. In process, we push the XCom with the key processed file. So as we want to get it back, we need to specify that key here. Okay. And finally, once we have file info, so the XCom pushed from download, and all the XComs produced by the process tasks, we pass those XComs into report. So if we save the file and take a look at the UI, so let's refresh the page. As you can see, we have no more errors. And if you click on myDAG_TaskFlow and grab view, you will obtain the following DAG. Wow. Wow. Remember at the beginning of the webinar, I said that download report should depend on download. And that's what you can see here. Why you get this dependency? Because if you take a look at the code, report needs file info coming from download in order to work. And that's exactly why Airflow say, hey, actually you need download in order to get report works. Okay, and again, that's why the TaskFlow API is so useful. You make implicit dependencies explicit. And as you can see, we have generated 3 tasks, Spark__1 and Spark__2, by having this beautiful loop. And as we specify in the task decorator that the task ID of the task, as shown here, should be Spark, that's why we obtain Spark here. Okay, for example, here instead of Spark, if you want to say, I don't know, let's say storm like that, and save the file. Then refresh the page. Let's wait a little bit. As you're going to see in maximum 30 seconds, you will be able to see storm as well. So let's wait to grab view. Okay, not here anymore. And now you get it. Okay, as you can see, all the task instances that are created dynamically have the task ID storm. Okay. And there is one last thing that I didn't talk about, which is multiple underscore outputs. With multiple underscore outputs, you can say that instead of having 1 XCom for this, you create 2 XComs, 1 for path and 1 for file name. Okay, and by doing this, you can use either path or file name. Okay, so here, that's why you are able to say, okay, I want to get path. Let me execute the DAG, it will be clearer. So if we turn on the toggle of the DAG and refresh the page, let's see, okay, download is executed. Then we have clean, everything works. Then if we click on admin and XComs, and if you take a look at, let me put this way, so all the XComs created by myDAG TaskFlow, you can see that we have 3 XComs, processed file, that are pushed by each storm task, automatically generated. And then we have those 2 XComs, path and file name, which have been created because in the task decorator here, we say multiple outputs equals to true. So with multiple outputs equals to true, whenever you use that parameter, you are saying that if you have, for example, JSON value here, each key will be a XCom. Okay, each pair will become the XCom. That's what you are saying with multiple underscore outputs. And that's how it works. Okay. And again, if you want to make your DAG even clearer, one thing you can do, and if you use the Astronomer CLI, you can do this like natively. You will have this folder includes. Here you could definitely create, let's say, my DAG underscore workflow, okay, .py. And this file is into the folder includes. But then in my underscore DAG, you could definitely take your tasks like that, cut them, open the file, put them here, save the file. Then in my DAG, make the import. So let's say from includes, import the different tasks. So download, clean, let's say process, and report. And as you can see, your DAG is much, much cleaner. Okay, so you can definitely do that. That's why it is so powerful.
This is something we talked about as well in our DAG writing best practices webinar, is that if at all possible, keep your top level code out of your DAG file. It's going to make your Airflow scheduler run better, and it's just a lot cleaner. You can see that Mark now has this DAG in only 22 lines of code. So
exactly. That's exactly
what clean and easy there.
Definitely, that's exactly what Keaton said in the previous webinar. You should definitely keep your Python functions away from your DAG, as you might end up with many Python functions. And as you can see here, with just a few lines of code, I have a DAG and no need to use the Python operator anymore. It is automatically created for you with the tasks decorator, and you can still generate tasks dynamically. You can still indicate the dependency with the right and left bit shift operator. You can still generate tasks, and you can still create dependencies, but this time let Airflow create those dependencies for you. And so the implicit dependencies created by the XComs are not implicit anymore. Now they are explicit, and that's why I truly believe that the TaskFlow API will become like the standard way of creating your DAGs. Okay, what you have seen with the task decorator, you can be sure that all the operators will be created in that way. Okay, I know that there is a PR for creating like 2 other operators, a little bit of teasing here. And again, as you can see, your DAG is much clearer. A new goal should be always to keep, thank you, Kexil, indeed, maybe the Spark operator. So your goal is to keep your DAG as clean as possible. And you can do that with the TaskFlow API. The code will be available. You will be able to like play with it after the webinar. You will receive everything you need, the video and the code. If you have any question, don't hesitate to ask right now in the Airmeet. And I hope you enjoyed everything you learned. Again, the TaskFlow API is super useful. You will create DAG faster, better, and yeah, you won't lose any more time to create tasks again and again and again. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mark. That was a really great demo. We've got a couple of questions in our questions tab that haven't been answered yet. The first is, do you see any reason why you would still want to write DAGs in the traditional way, defining contexts, if you were only working with the Python operator and running Airflow 2.0?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's your preference. Like, if you want to code your DAG in the traditional way, you can still do it. But in my opinion, the TaskFlow API will become something that will be the next standard way of creating your DAGs. And so you should be already try to get used to it, because as you can see, I mean, keep in mind that the TaskFlow API is not here to you can see, you can create tasks just by a few lines of code instead of using the instead of defining the Python operator again and again. So I mean, as an engineer, you know, you want to you don't want to lose your time. You want to be fast. You want to be efficient, and that's exactly what the TaskFlow API allows you. You want to be efficient? Use the TaskFlow API. That's all what I can say.
Good answer. I would totally agree with that. We have another question. If we use the task decorator, by default, it will create a Python operator, correct? Yes, that is correct. And so currently there are not decorators for any other operators, but as Mark mentioned, and I saw Caxel mentioned in the chat, there are PRs open for others, and we expect that eventually any operator that you want to use, there will be a decorator for. But for right now, if you just do @task, that's going to create a Python operator for you.
Exactly. And yeah, there is one thing, because I see that about the XCom backend, because it is a really interesting topic, really important as well. Okay, after the webinar, we are going to send you a quick tutorial about setting your XCom backend with AWS. Okay, so that's our gift for you. You will see everything you need in order to set up your XCom backend by your own. But just a little bit of teasing, if you want to create your XCom backend, you can do that. You will basically rewrite the XCom backend. There is a parameter for that. Again, you will see that after the webinar. And then you will instantiate, as Keaton said, there is like two methods, serialize value and deserialize value, from which you can say, okay, I want to serialize my XCom in S3, for example. And that's what you can see here. In serialize value, this method is called each time an XCom is created. And so your XCom will be serialized in S3. Then you want to pull that XCom, the method deserialize_value will be called. And so your XCom will be pulled from the S3, and not from the database anymore. But there is one big warning here. That's not because you use XCom backend that you can share gigabytes of data between your tasks. Okay? At the end of the day, you are still pulling the task, pulling your data into Airflow. So if you are on the single machine and using, for example, the local executor, or even the server executor, actually, you will end up with a memory overflow error if your machine can't handle the size of the XCOM you are pulling from. You are pulling from the S3 backend, okay? So keep in mind this. XCOM backends are extremely useful if you want to benefit from, I don't know, the functionalities of S3, for example, but still you have to be careful with XComs and the size of your XComs. But obviously, you will be able to store more than only 1 or 2 gigabytes. But don't share terabytes of data between your XComs. And Keaton said that during our webinar. So keep in mind this.
From my perspective, one of the main benefits of being able to use your own XCom backend is, one, then you're not increasing the storage in your metadata database, so everything's separate. And if you are using something like S3, you can, apply bucket policies and back up that data and just have everything managed kind of separately there. So it gives you a lot more flexibility in that way. And again, as Mark said, with implementing your own serialize and deserialize methods, you can store different types of values in XComs and things like that. But again, we certainly don't recommend it for really large chunks of data. That's still not what Airflow was designed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Keep in mind, Airflow is not a data processing framework, okay? It is not Spark, not yet at least. So keep in mind this. Okay. Do we have any more questions?
We have time for one more. Can you avoid showing XCOM values in the Airflow UI? So is it possible to encrypt them, or?
Oh, I think you mean if you click on rendered and you see your XCOM or something. Mm-hmm. I guess there is. I don't think, but Kexil, you might confirm this, but I'm pretty sure that right now there is no way to hide templated value from the UI. But I guess this is something that will come in the future. I'm pretty sure of it. I think there is even a PR for that, or at least an issue. But yeah, right now you can't hide templated value on the UI.
Awesome.
All right, so thank you, everyone. I mean, it was a great pleasure. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. It is a super important topic. You will use the TaskFlow API. I know that. We know that. And as a little gift, you will receive a quick tutorial about setting your own XCom backend with AWS so that you can do everything you want with XCom backends and make your own experiments. And again, it was a big pleasure for us to have you here. So thank you, everyone. And yeah, I mean, I let Ketan the final word.
I'm just going to echo you, Mark. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining, and thanks for your great questions. And we hope to see you in more webinars in the future.
See you, everyone.
All right.
Have a great
Thanks,
day.
everybody.
Have a wonderful
Great day.
See you. Oh, maybe one more thing. Actually, we can say one more thing. We have this little coupon code. Let me put it in the chat. So if you want to enjoy the certification for free, use it. It is available only for 1 day, so you can use it in order to get the certification for free. That's another gift from us. So please don't hesitate to use it and pass the certification. That was my last word. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.